ESL Pro League has a fiery start, a match-fixing scandal is hitting the Counter-Strike world, and a legendary caster makes his return. My name is Dinko, and I'll be replacing Heku and King Demps on this week's episode of HLTV Peek to make sure that you are supplied with all the latest Counter-Strike news. A familiar face has graced our screens and ears this week as HenryG makes his return to the commentary position after a 2-year hiatus. ESL had announced there was to be an additional secret caster added to the broadcast team for ESL Pro League, and that proved to be none other than Mr. Greer himself. Certainly no blunders to be heard in his commentary though, as his return made it look like he had never left. The first week of ESL Pro League has been a dramatic one. Ahead of the start of Group A, it looked clear that NAVI and Vitality should be two lock-ins for the playoffs, and Endpoint should be the team following dead last in the group, leaving that final spot in the playoffs up for grabs for either Team Spirit, Fnatic, or NIP. As the week transpired though, it was clear that Group A was anything but predictable. Day 1 kicked off as you would expect, NAVI taking a victory over Team Spirit and Vitality finding success versus Endpoint. But it was the final game of the day between Fnatic and NIP that really kicked things off. A beast was unleashed wearing a coat of black and orange as Fnatic debuted in Pro League, stomping, destroying, obliterating, embarrassing NIP 16-4 on back-to-back maps. Day 2 would see a close affair between Team Spirit and Endpoint, with Team Spirit coming out on top 2-1, barely scraping a win with multiple overtimes. NAVI dropped their first map of the tournament versus Fnatic, who continued their strong form from their opening, but went on to lose the series 2-1. Vitality continued NIP's punishment in Pro League, as NIP lost the series 2-0. The start of Pro League would lead to Rez switching to the AWPing duties for the rest of the tournament. Alert to all UK CS fans, as a jaw-dropping result for Endpoint as they took down #1 team in the world NAVI 2-0 in a convincing series win. The Endpoint side, led by Guy Nertz, to victory, have supplied the UK CS fans with enough hopium to do 3 years. The Endpoint result over NAVI, combined with multiple back-and-forth matches throughout the rest of the group, resulted in the last day of Pro League Group A being all up for grabs. 3 matches were played simultaneously. Every single team in those 3 matches had a shot at making the playoffs. Vitality, the only team that had confirmed themselves a spot heading into that final day. In the end, Vitality topped the group, Fnatic found themselves a second place finish in Group A, and NAVI secured the final spot in the playoffs, finishing 3rd in the group, despite losing the final matchup versus NIP and giving them their 3rd best-of-3 loss in a row. They only needed to secure 1 map win versus NIP to secure playoffs, and that's what they got. Simple stated in the post-match interview that they had not got enough practice due to him not being available for boot camp. NAVI had played with HenryG heading into Blast, and they had travelled immediately from Blast into Pro League, and it wasn't enough for NAVI to perform at their best. Simple stated, 3 weeks should be enough to get them ready for the playoffs, and we should be seeing a different face of the NAVI side in a few weeks' time. Pro League wasn't the only ESL event going on this week with some crazy results. ESL challenger Melbourne went on down under. OG were the most notable team in attendance in Melbourne, coming in hot from their strong performance in their Blast group. However, a shock upset versus Wings Up would send OG packing in the group stages and on a flight home. It was all celebrations for Brazil and Australia this week, as the Wizard of Oz Fallen topped the event with a 1.25 rating. Cello was the second highest rated player at the event, just in behind Fallen by a small margin. However, it was not Imperial that took the victory in Melbourne. However, they did place themselves in the grand finals. It was Pain Gaming, their Brazilian counterpart, who took them down not once, but twice. First in the initial group stages, and the second time in the grand final in a 2-1 victory. All in all, great signs for Brazilian Counter-Strike as the Introductory Masters Rio Major approaches. This week, a new case of match fixing has hit the Counter-Strike world as Shady Holt has been banned from the Elisa Fall Invitational due to some suspicious activity. Tournament organizers stated that they had been alerted by a third party of some suspicious activity going on within some of their matches, in particular against the Prospects and Yodegas lineups. Elisa Esports have not shared details of the specifics of the match fixing. However, they have let us know that they have updated the Finnish authorities, other esports tournament organizers, and ESIC. It is worth noting that Rand, a player who played in one of the 2 matches in question, posted a tweet longer trying to distance himself from the team, stating that he made not 1 cent of profit during those matches. Shui and Acor have left the MOUZ organization and they have found their new home in Gamer Legion. MHL has been allowed to explore his options outside of the academy side NXT, and he has stated that he is looking to set his sights on a team outside of an academy roster. This leaves MOUZ NXT in search of 3 new players. The Evil Geniuses and ATK have made their way through the RMR qualifiers in North America to grab themselves a spot in Stockholm. Evil Geniuses started with a scare, barely scraping their first victory in overtime versus Limitless 1917. They went on to beat Team 1 16-13 and secured 2 stronger finishes towards the end of the RMR qualification process. The last North American RMR spots have been filled by Team 1 and Infinity. Group B of ESL Pro League is set to start this week. FaZe Clan headline the group featuring G2, Big Outsiders, MIBR and FTW. Let's hope this group provides as much excitement as Group A. That's you all caught up with the HLTV Peek this week. More teams will touch down in sunny Malta to continue Pro League, but I'm off to enjoy the warm glow of my monitor. Goodbye for now.